So it became this process about handing gift cards back and forth, back and forth. It was like, okay, this is ridiculous. How about we make this about the kids and only kids? And if you have a job, you're like eliminated. Right? You're eliminated from this process. This is about the kids. All right. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Araujo, and I want to thank you for joining me the few days before Christmas and all through the house, right? We are here making sure we're on the path of continued growth and expansion. And, although many people are taking their ease, although many are not even, creating the outcomes they want for next year because they've paused, we're here, we're connected, and we have to realize that, the work never stops. I put up with this post this morning and I said, always on. And there's always a pressure. There is a pressure when you have that type of mindset. Once you take a leadership position, once you start creating big things for your business, there's always that pressure that you always have to be on. And it's tough and it's overwhelming sometimes, right? Where we start getting into the mindset like we just want to rest. We just want to relax and take some time off. And I'm going to encourage you, that's just a new standard that you set for yourself. And that being in that place of always on is much greater feeling than feeling off your game, right? And this is a method for you to stay connected. Now, I want to bring up a subject that's near and dear to my heart because I've seen the struggles firsthand through my family growing up. And I've also seen the struggles through my own financial burdens and just messes that I created in my life, in my personal life, and with my finances. And it seems to put like a microscope on things during the holidays, right? These feelings of sadness that can sometimes tend to bleed in through all of December and some of November, where we're just feeling like overwhelmed by the time frame, right? It's coming to an end, right? As Christmas comes nearer and nearer, we realize that the end of the year is coming to an end. And there's this pressure on all of us to remain happy, to be joyful, right? To be in high spirits and show love. And you see it everywhere. Like you should be feeling a certain way. But I've been in this situation many times before where I just didn't feel that way. In fact, I felt the complete opposite. I felt fatigue. I felt stressful. I felt depressed and irritable. I felt sad. There was many instances that I felt sad during this time. And, there was a number of situations why. One, it was not meeting the expectations of the things that I set the year before, right? I set my sights too high and I failed to live up to those expectations. So I was feeling the burdens of that. So how can I feel this happiness and love and joy when I came up so short? And then there was this anxiety, right? The issues that I caused within my own household because of the traditions I had growing up. Like we needed to do things a certain way because it was expected from me. My family expected, certain things, and her family expected certain things. And these battles that we would face within our own household, the stress and almost the animosity we had towards each other because we weren't following the traditions of what we had growing up. She had her way, I had my own way, and there was always this collision of things that we should do. So during this time, I'm feeling that. And of course, nostalgia, right? Nostalgia for the things how they used to be, about the relationships I used to have with my family members, the happiness I always felt during this time as a kid, right? And we didn't really see the dynamic. We were more elated about the gifts. We were more elated about playing with our cousins and our friends and being there connected with grandma and extended family. So we look at our household today. I'm like, I don't remember it being this stressful during that time when I was a young kid. You start looking at your relationships. Like I had this bond with my brother. I had this bond with my cousins. I no longer have that. So you're trying to force things, right? Not realizing things will never be the same. And that's just part of growing up. That's just part of going after the things that you want, and different people leading different paths in life. But another thing was the financial and time commitments. Financial and time commitments, right? And the expectations that come from that. If you think about it, right? Many of us are conditioned to go out and buy gifts. We have to go buy gifts, not only to our spouses and our kids, but extended family members, mom and dad, and brother and sister and uncles and friends. Like, we got to show that we love and care for them, so we got to buy them these gifts. And what we don't realize is the stress and duress that comes from even obtaining those gifts. What to buy them, where to go, having to fight through traffic, having to deal with other people's stress as you're trying to buy this gift, only to be disappointed on the time when you see them opening it, and it's not the reaction you expected. Now there's this animosity towards them, like, you didn't like my gift, like, how rude, how dare them. I spent all this time, I spent all this money, and look at their reaction. They just threw it off to the side. And there's all these things that happen because we're trying to fall into this square box of the things that we think should happen during this time, not realizing like we're beating ourselves down. Not only do we have to carry the burdens of maybe not necessarily hitting our targets, or maybe you did. Maybe this was the best year ever and it's coming to an end, and now you're starting to think like, how am I going to repeat this next year? Like, this was heavy on me. It was stressful. So right now you're having the guilt and the shame about maybe not spending enough time with your family because you built this business. And how are you going to do it again? So we have all these thoughts, and that's where the holidays blues come from, right? Feeling sad and feeling overwhelmed and feeling, the stress of the times. In fact, I was reading this study, and it says that 53% of people experience financial stress during this time. I remember one year specifically where I just didn't have the money. Here I am, years before, I would come in with the biggest gifts, like cash gifts to my parents, right? And to my little nephews, just start giving money away like it grew on trees. And there was one year in particular where I just shamed myself so much that I didn't want to go anywhere because I just didn't have the financial means. I didn't. And during this time where I needed my family most, I put the own pressure that I was not delivering the way I should have. And a good thing, my kids were young. They were happy with anything. But, carrying this burden of this financial duress, right? Maxing out my credit cards. And at that time, I didn't even have any credit cards because my credit was so bad. My financial decisions were disastrous. I didn't have the means. And yet I was like putting this pressure on me. Like, I had to go buy these gifts and to feel burdened by the fact that I just wasn't enough during that time. Right? And all these things compile, and the pressures some of you are feeling right now, it's very real. And some of you are feeling the joy, and that's great. Congratulations. But I want you to be aware of many things that can happen during this time, and some of you did very well this year. And again, congratulations to you. But it doesn't mean that, this time is only about what you can give. And really realizing if you're not in a place where you're happy, you're looking forward to visiting family, you're more concerned about who may show up, maybe it's something that you need to change. And maybe you're just meeting the expectations of others and putting your feelings on the back burner for the sake of their traditions. I had to realize that as a man, as the head of the household, Carla and I had to set new traditions for our own household. We couldn't be, consistently being pulled apart by the traditions we had growing up. Things had to change. And we had to be okay with that. We had to be okay that it's no longer okay just to be in a family dynamic when maybe you don't get along, right? Only to make things worse, only to have a more sour taste in your mouth after all is said and done, for the sake of what others want from you and expect from you. I think this is a year where we all proclaim of what we want and start setting our own personal standards of how to create that joy and happiness with our own households, not be stuck in the traditions of yesteryear. Because if anything, for me, it was creating too much chaos within my own household. Many of you don't know, but Carla, my wife, her birthday is on December 24th. December 24th, right? And it's Christmas Eve. And for many years, we just disregarded her birthday for the sake of the traditions we had to meet with our family. And it created, right? Of course, it's going to create something. When somebody has to give up what they want to do for the sake of others, it's going to create this animosity, resentment, right? But the first thing they tell you is you got to compromise. Yet, divorce rates are through the roof, over 60%, because everyone's trying to compromise, which is give up their own goals and ambitions and the things they want to do for the sake of trying to make somebody else happy. Family dysfunctions are caused by compromise. Divorces are caused by compromise. It's realizing that, hey, we can come up with a better strategy, something that'll work for both, as opposed to trying to force, again, these traditions of yesteryear. We're not 10 years old anymore. We're not dictated on what we need to do, where we need to be. We have to decide. And I understand the financial burdens just because that was a tradition. Hey, you have to buy these gifts for everybody. And at that moment, I couldn't. I started really feeling bad about being in that situation. So I was tired, all right? I was tired. One, I was like, some of these years, I just didn't do what I was supposed to do. And now I'm feeling the guilt. Now I got to put a bigger financial burden. There was times where there was just complete chaos at family gatherings. That hurt feelings, right? Decisions were made, that things were said. It's like, why do I have to continue to put myself through this? So one of the things I want you to think about is like really being focused on what kind of traditions you're going to start setting forward, where it doesn't put you in a situation where it becomes burdensome during this time. Yes, this is a time to reflect. This is a time to adjust and to pivot. But it's hard, right? When we get pulled back by the things that people expect from us. And I'm going to tell you something. Once you make a decision to change the family dynamic, the family traditions, it's not going to be easy. But it's almost something that you have to do for yourself. Now, if things have always grown perfectly for you, maybe this conversation is not for you. But I'm talking about to those individuals that constantly run into this wall during this time because of the expectations of others, our own expectations as well, of how things used to be and how they should be. So now we're having this high standard of things that are no longer the case. Hey, listen, like some of you are not going to have the same relationship with your siblings like the way you did when you were 10, 11, 12 years old. But there's always this constant expectation. So when they happen to say something or they do something you don't agree with, all of a sudden that's all you think about. When in reality, they live their own lives most of the year. So why does it matter now of how they live? Maybe we should just focus on loving them for who they are today, not of what the relationship was back then or the traditions of what they were back then. So for us, we had to make some changes. The tradition of, going to the family gathering, celebrating, drinking, and everything's all good until, it isn't. Drinking, celebrating till midnight, and then making our rounds and not getting home till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Kids are tired. I'm tired. The next day is pretty much shot. I can't do the things to take care of myself. But hey, this is a family tradition. This is the way things must work. So I'm dragging Carla around to my family's house on her birthday. And then we have to go to her family's house so we can even the playing field, right? Poor kids are tired. So maybe something needed to change because there was always this thing like we both really didn't enjoy it. So we started making some changes under our terms. And we said, hey, how about we go visit family early in the day and are home by 8 o'clock at night? So we can watch our own kids in our own house open up their presents. And then we wake up the next morning and go visit mom and go visit your parents. Not in a drunken stupor or hungover, but rather in a more loving and caring way where I'm present 100% of the time. How come we just don't change that tradition? And guess what? It wasn't well received. Where are the Araujos? How come they're not here? What's going on with them? Must be Carla keeping them back. It must be AZ holding them back from not visiting us on Christmas Eve. No, it was realizing we had to build our own traditions. I can't get tied to what used to be. It no longer works for me. It sends me over the edge. Too much chaos at my own home. I need to look after the people that I decided that I chose in my life. I chose my wife. I chose my kids. And if you really look at this, I didn't choose my family. Not to say I don't love them or care for them, but I'm not going to allow others to give me the expectations when I did not choose to be there to begin with. Sounds pretty harsh, right? Pretty messed up. AZ, you're a jerk. It's about self-reflection. It's about like the health of your mind. Mental health. Emotional health. Psychological health. It's all those things. I need to make things right in the core of my household first and foremost, before anything and everyone else. I love my mom. I love my dad. I love my cousins. I love my siblings. But their expectations are not going to be impeded on mine. Within my own household, the people that I spend the most time with, the people that have been there through the dark and the painful and the stressful. So it's going to work in first. And then I'll figure out ways to add everything else. But it's not going to be the other way around. Those were the traditions from many years ago. It no longer worked. These are the traditions now. And these are the terms that I'm going to work through. So, we celebrate. We're done visiting. Christmas Eve, by 8 o'clock, we're home. Right? We're home. We're safe. Kids, open up 1 or 2 gifts before Christmas Eve. Like, that's the big thing. 1 or 2 before Christmas. And then we wake up early in the morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Feeling good about ourselves, not a headache. I can't tell you how many Christmases I threw away. Christmas days. Too hungover, too drunk, too out of reality to even pay attention to my own family. No longer. We wake up early in the morning. I watch the smiles on my daughter's faces, the emotion. I record it. I'm there present because it is now under my terms. Then we all get ready. Then we go visit grandma. And then we go visit our other grandma. And then, if we feel like it, we'll go visit extended family. Not that I love them any less. I just needed to do things that work for me. I'm done being stressed during this time. I'm done with the expectations. I'm done with it all. And it started working. Life started working. And guess what? They started adapting. No longer were they upset with us. As a matter of fact, anytime we show up, they have big arms. They have open arms. They're like, oh my God, what's going on, cousin? What's going on? Nephew? As opposed to the resentment they were feeling before because we didn't meet their expectations. I had to stand strong. Carla had to stand strong and proclaim this is what works for us. And when you stand strong of who you are and don't deviate from it, you will get the respect and the love 100% of the time. But you got to be willing to start changing things. Another thing that I've mentioned to you before, buying gifts was stressful. Buying gifts just became this lackluster process, to a point where it was just about giving gift cards away. Oh, thanks for the gift card. Here you go, another gift card. Right? For the sake of a tradition. Hey, you got to give presents during this time. It was lackluster. And again, sometimes there was disappointment, right? You go out and you buy these gifts, and you look at their reaction, and you're like, really? Like, you don't like what I just gave you? You don't know how much money I spent? You don't know how long it took me? Like, you didn't know what I had to go through, the lines I had to stand in? Really? You're going to have that type of reaction, right? These expectations. But as adults, it became a lackluster process. It was very different from when I was a kid. I remember when I was 5 years old, I got my first bicycle. Unfortunately, got stolen about 15 days later. But that was my first bike, and I remember the joy, how elated I felt. It was the biggest thing I could ever got. For me, I can't have that same reaction as an adult. I can't. And I can't expect somebody else to have that same reaction. But I can't expect kids. So how come we don't make this about the kids? Let's make that about them. And let's just make it with adults. Let's just make it about spending time together, enjoying somebody else, enjoying company, as opposed to the expectations that come from gifts. So we changed that tradition. I didn't like being out there in the malls. We're located right next to a mall. Look at the smile. Look at people's faces in the cars. There is no joy in there. None. I see a lot of stress. I see people thinking about how they're going to pay for certain things. I can afford many things, but I choose not to follow the tradition that no longer serves us. So it became this process about handing gift cards back and forth, back and forth. It was like, okay, this is ridiculous. How about we make this about the kids and only kids? And if you have a job, you're like eliminated. Right? You're eliminated from this process. This is about the kids. Let them remember the traditions that you built, not the expectations. Traditions, not expectations. So I remember one year I loudly proclaimed, Carla and I had this conversation. We're like, this is getting ridiculous. I'm receiving gifts I really don't want. I don't want to feel like I'm ungrateful, but I don't need it. I know that their financial situation. I'm not sure why they're handing me this large gift card. Like, it's not needed. Thank you, but keep it for yourself. So within our own family, we said one year, gifts for adults, stop today. That's it. No more gifts for adults. Got some looks. We're like, oh, well, okay. No gifts. The following year, it seems like Carla and I were the only ones who remembered. I try to remind them, hey, just remember, we're not coming in with 0 gifts. No gifts are coming from us, only to the kids. Well, when we showed up, empty-handed, got a couple stares. I mean, don't get me wrong. They brought gifts for me. I still opened those. I still thanked everyone for bringing me the gifts. I walked out with an armful of gifts. So thank you to everybody. But I told you what we were going to do. If you decide to buy me something, that's completely on you. But we shifted that tradition. We wanted to make it about the relationship. It was a little awkward, right? We felt a little bad. Here we are grabbing all these gifts. We didn't come with anything. Sorry. Not because we couldn't. We were we were very good with our financial position. We just didn't want to follow that tradition anymore. So we got the awkwardness out of the way. And guess what? The next year, no one brought gifts. We changed it. No one did. And we spent more time talking and laughing. talking about, going down memory lane. The things we went through, it was so much fun, so much joy, zero expectations. And we have to make decisions like this as we start realizing who we are and what we want. So what I'm going to tell you this is like, you're going to feel a little overwhelmed if you're trying to meet the expectations of others, or if you're trying to meet how things used to be, right? The standard of how things used to be. Maybe you're thinking about your outcomes this year. Maybe you're not in a good place, or maybe you're too overly stressed and anxious because you had a great year. And how are you going to follow that up next year? You're thinking about all these things. So I want you to think about a few things. I want you to really start thinking about your actions moving forward, right, during this time. And how to not fall into this rut of the holiday blues. And first and foremost, it's about self-care. Okay? During this time, I want you to think about the things that may and may not work for you. Are you in situations you really don't want to be? Are you having conversation and arguments during this time when there's no need to be there to begin with? I'm going to tell you something. You can love them from afar. You can love them on other days besides just Christmas. Maybe the dynamic of having everyone over is not the right dynamic. Maybe you visit those people individually. Maybe that's the situation. Maybe you visit them where alcohol is not present. Maybe that's how you get along. But these are the things that we have to think about during this time. So I want you to come into this more aware. Now, if all your experience is joy and happiness, right? If you're feeling all those things, then again, this is not necessarily the conversation for you. But if you're riddled with anxiety and the expectations and traditions that maybe not work for you, this is where I need you to pay attention. Be aware of what works for you and what's not necessarily. Be aware of the conversations. Are you coming out of these interactions feeling good about yourself or less than? And if it's less than, something has to change. Right? If you're feeling anxious around somebody, maybe things have to change. If you're feeling anger towards conversation, maybe something needs to change. But it's going to come down to self-care. Watch yourself during this time because there's going to be ramifications you pay. The holiday blues are magnified when you stop doing the self-care. So think about, are you overeating, over-drinking, oversleeping, which causes you to overlook your responsibilities to yourself and your business? Understand that there's other people not overeating, not over-drinking, not over-sleeping, that are going to be 10 steps ahead of you while you're trying to dig yourself out about not feeling good about yourself because of all the decisions or indecisions you made during that time. Somebody out there is 20 steps ahead of you now because they did the right things during this time. They didn't retract to their lowest form of habit. I'm not saying don't celebrate. I'm saying just watch your actions so you're not paying the consequences later. Feeling depressed. Of course you're not going to feel your best when you overeat and overdrink and oversleep and not do anything for your business, of course. So why put yourself through that mental anguish and just simply take care of yourself during this time? Be present. Don't be drunk off of food or alcohol. Think about that. And I also want you to start thinking about setting your own traditions. Your own traditions, your new traditions for your family core, without the expectations of what extended family members want from you. If it's not serving you, you must change it. If it's causing these fights within because you want to compromise, stop compromising. Make a decision together. What's going to work? I remember having a bad attitude every time I had to go to Carla's mom's house. I'm like, all right, when are we going to leave? And she would do the same when we were at my family's house. It's my birthday. Why are we here? And then we would fight at home. I saw you were acting. You weren't talking to anybody, Carla. Like, what's going on with you? Well, you were doing the same thing. It's ridiculous, right? We were fighting and causing this chaos within our own walls for the sake of others. Sorry, cousins. Sorry, uncles. I love you. But I'm not going to cause that drama within my house any longer. I will visit you under different circumstances or when it works. And I've been in situations where I've gone the next day on Christmas Day with just me and my daughters because Carly didn't feel like going, and vice versa. Now I want to go, and now she wants to go. But when somebody's like, pressuring you to do it, you're more inclined not to want to do it. So think about your own family traditions. We no longer celebrate past 12 a.m., get home at 2 o'clock in the morning only to be tired the next day. We don't do that anymore. We do things on our own terms. We wake up early and we feel great. It's such a great time and we just relax. Another thing is just stay connected. Okay, stay connected. Start looking at how things are going to change for you next year. Don't set these unrealistic goals as we get closer to the end of the year. Just start making small deposits, small changes. And again, I'm going to continue to push the 12-week target book of how you can make small changes every single day. Don't put the expectations you're going to lose 80 pounds in 3 months. How about just a pound a week? Imagine what that would do over a year. Small, simple changes that can send you on this road to fulfillment. Don't isolate and shame yourself, right? Guys, like making decisions that work for you, you shouldn't sit in that place. Stick by your decisions and dig your heels in. It's about you. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this Mindset Mastery. I think it's important that we constantly reflect on our mental health. Everyone always talks about the offense, about how to build a great business, about how many calls and how many touches you need to make with your databases, about how much social media marketing, but what about the defense when things don't go good? Oftentimes people don't realize that that's what keeps their business from growing. They have a weak defense. Little conversations like this is building your defense so you can go hard on the offense, so you can know what are the things that slow you down, the things that are triggering you, like that's defense, and how to be able to react functionally and properly, powerfully. So again, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. I do have a couple of comments that I want to read. If you gained any insights from this, maybe there's some traditions that you need to change that are no longer serving you, no longer working for you. Have the courage to do so. Have the courage to do so. These agreements we are born into, not given an option. But given an option, would it be the agreement you would keep? Well said. Dude, that's perfect right there. And I think where we're so ingrained in these traditions, we don't question them. We just think that's just the way it is. I had to question every aspect of it because I didn't want to feel riddled with anxiety. I didn't want to feel depressed, stressed. So maybe I look at what's out there and what's expected of me and realize, what do I expect for myself? It was a much higher standard. Best things ever. We've been doing that also for about 5 years. We switched now to bringing food platters so we all share a great meal together. Absolutely. It's not about the gifts. I'm not out there fighting. Good thing for Amazon too. And we're pretty blunt and clear about who and what we're going to give to. And it's the kids. And I love seeing their reaction. The same feelings I got when I was a young kid. Good topic. Christmas Eve was the same for us. So stressful it is, Angela. And it's not a good place for us to be in that place of stress and duress during a time we should be celebrating it. It often sent us down this never-ending rabbit hole. And, arguments would ensue, things would be said, blaming. It seems like the first thing that comes out is blaming. It's because you want this. It's because, it just goes back and forth, and it just creates this unnecessary like stress at home, chaos at home. So thanks for that. And again, let's just watch for our own behaviors. Let's be very aware, all right, cognizant of the things that are going on around us, because it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to live a life where we're just full of these feelings that don't serve us. That means something's not working. Let's make a change to that. John, I agree. It's not about the gifts, but the blessings of the family. Absolutely. Under your own terms, right? Blaze, good advice. I appreciate it. Thanks, brother. And again, let's just be aware. What's serving you? What's serving your core family? Your core family, listen, like the way I see it is it's the people you chose. That's the core. That has to come on the forefront. And again, I mean, I think we're sometimes tied to how things used to be. It's not the case. You gotta set new traditions. You gotta set things that work for you. So again, that's just my advice, my take. It's worked for us, and I'm thinking it'll work for you. I mean, how can it not work for you when you're the ones making the decisions? So thank you again for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. Of course, you can listen to a replay on badassagents.com. And until next time, I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.